Okay, today we are going to talk about Dorado. The whole map, we're going to talk about some things I recommend doing and some things I recommend watching out for, focusing largely on the defender's perspective, because the attackers are usually a little bit more free in what they're trying to do. The defenders are usually trying to accomplish something more specific. So, let's start with the first checkpoint. So, Dorado is one of those maps that's very good to play a bunker comp on, which is usually the case for most maps these days, bunker comps being very good at time of speaking. And Dorado's just the same. Lots of long sight lines to abuse, and the attacking team is more or less coming at you from one direction. There's some exceptions on the second checkpoint, but it's pretty much like a one-directional map. So, it's a good map to play a bunker comp on, it's a good map to play Mei on. And it is one of those maps where you should anticipate that the enemy team is quite likely to play a bunker back at you. It's pretty common for Bastion to roll around this corner, because this is one of the few maps in the game where you can get the Bastion on the payload at the start of the round with almost zero risk to the Bastion or the team, because the attacking spawn being around here, this is by far the safest place that any of the teams get on a payload map. Because the attacking team, or the defending team rather, is going to be sat over here, and you can't see it at all. You can see the team come through that gate a little bit there, but, you know, not really. So they get to set up on the payload for more or less completely free. You might have somebody over here, like a long-range DPS trying to poke at them when they come out, but for the most part, it's pretty easy. So it's one of those maps where you should anticipate that, at the very least, a bunker is likely to roll around the corner, if not like a full Bastion setup. So if a Bastion does come around the corner, pretty much the easiest way to deal with that setup is to get a Mei and a Roadhog, because this is like usually the easiest way to deal with a Bastion, especially given Mei and Roadhog are like really commonly seen together these days. Is Mei puts the wall under the Bastion. This works if you're attacking or defending. You put the wall under the Bastion. Bastion is now above the shield. Roadhog hooks the Bastion. Bastion dies. Problem solved. It's like the easiest way to usually deal with it. But it's one of those maps where you should expect that that is quite likely to happen, just because of the safety of the opening spawn. So this is a map similar to how we're going to operate on Watchpoint Gibraltar, where we're going to set up on this high ground at the start of the round, but we're under no illusion we're going to hold the enemy team from this perspective, because just like the first checkpoint on Gibraltar, they are going to push under us sooner or later, and once again, we don't really want to jump down right on top of them. It's not as bad to do it on this map as it is on Gibraltar, because we are planning to defend from this choke point right here, whereas on Gibraltar, we're planning to defend a fair bit away from the opening high ground, so it's not as bad to do on this checkpoint, but you still don't want to just jump down straight on top of them. If you're playing a dive comp, you might decide to do that, but, you know, I still recommend just doing the same thing on Gibraltar, where once they start pushing under you, you rotate round here, jump down, and then you just start defending from this position. Because you have just a superior position on them when they're trying to push through this choke point at you, whereas if you jump down on them right here, you give up on that superior position and you just start brawling them out. And that might be what your team is trying to accomplish, so that could be fine, I suppose, but for the most part, just defending from over here is going to be better. While we're sitting up here, we're really just trying to get, like, as much ult charge off of the enemy team as we can from this position. And maybe we get to stall them out a little bit as well. Like, maybe we get to buy a few seconds here, because if they come around the corner and we've got, like, a really good team comp for, like, getting picks on the enemy team. We've got, like, Ashe McCree, Ashe Hanzo, something like that, Widow Hanzo, and they come around the corner. We might manage to, like, just oppress them enough from up here that we slow them down as they're initially trying to push up. If we got, like, a Bastion or something, like, that might happen as well. So we might get a few seconds out of it, but we're, for the most part, not really going to hold them from up here. Now, there is a flank you have to watch for on this map right from the start, because there is a flank you can't see from up here at all when it's beginning, and it's down here. Because if you come through here, oh look, you can come out this door from the attacking team spawn, and unless somebody's over there, which there usually isn't, to be honest, and if they are, they're looking over here, they're not looking over here. So someone from the attacking team spawn can come through here, and they just get up behind you. Now, fortunately, you can watch this really easily, especially if you're playing a support, right? If you're playing, like, Mercy, you can sit, or Zen, like, you can sit back and just kind of, like, peek down and look at this corner every now and then, and even if you don't want to sit, like, all this way back, like, if you're playing, like, Ana Batista, you can't sit this far back, usually. But you can just look back, and you'll see them coming up the staircase, if nothing else. If they have vertical mobility, they can just hop at you, so that can be scary, but you've got to watch that at the start, because it's a pretty free flank. Like, the attacking team, you can't see them coming from up here until they're below you. You might hear them coming if they're just walking instead of crouch walking. Some people are loud enough that you can hear them. For example, if McCree decides that he's going to go down under there, you'll hear his spurs coming, but McCree shouldn't be doing that, but some, you know... Like, Roadhogs pretty commonly come through here, to be honest with you, to try and hook somebody right at the start, and the defending team is usually pretty bad at reacting, so the Roadhog can, like, come up here, do this, and then, like, get away, and they usually get away for free, to be honest, unless the defending team is actually paying attention, which is quite rare. By the way, this is where the Sombra will be. This is the health kit. So you've got to watch for that. Right out the start. And once you're defending from over here, there's another flank you have to watch. It's very rarely used, but when it does get used, because it's so rarely used, it always catches people off guard, and it's pretty good. So if you're attacking, you can come around this way, right? And if you got vertical mobility, bam, you're behind the team now. So watch for this corner back here once you're defending from over here, because then suddenly that becomes a scary flank route. But it is not very often actually used, and because it's kind of out of the way to get to it, I feel like most people don't actually know it exists, and not everybody can actually make use of it. You have to have vertical mobility to actually get use out of that flanking route, but bear in mind, it's back there. It is quite scary. So other than that, we're really planning to just play around this choke point, though. This is one of the hardest choke points in the game to actually break through, because it's just such a tight choke point. It's very hard to actually get through. And this is where, like, Mei gets a lot of value, because you've got this nice, obvious place to wall people off. This out here, you've got this big open space and this confined space that have, like, no cover in them, except for, like, coming into this room, so Blizzard gets a lot of value here. This is one of those places where Mei is pretty good. Even out here, like, there's some cover to be used up here, but Blizzard is still really scary in this route as well, so Mei gets a lot of value here. You can wall people off in, like, these rooms as well. Actually, Sombra might be in here sometimes as well. This is, like, a really risky place to be, but often the defending team ends up staying up here. Like, half of the team stays up here, so Sombra often feels safe enough to try and get away with using this health kit, so sometimes that's the case. There's also the other health kit back here. This is a large health kit. Sombra players love large health kits, so that's also where they like to hang out from. But you can kind of check on that one relatively easily, because you can look down the alleyway and see it, but like, the one down there and the one over there are the most common Sombra spots to watch out for. Sombra players love big health kits. They always try to find the big health kits. If they're, like, kind of scared, sometimes they hang out, like, with this one, but this is in the route of the defending team's respawn, so they tend to not use that one, but sometimes they'll use that one for, like, a turn or something, so, you know, those are the places. But we're planning to just mostly play around this choke point. It's not a terrible idea to have, like, somebody up here, just like a DPS. Like, McCree can sit up here relatively safely, you know? Like, if somebody jumps up here on McCree, he can get away, basically. Because if, like, a diver or a flanker comes up here and tries to kill McCree, he isn't really very scared of it, to be honest. Neither is, like, Soldier. They can just kind of either outduel them in the case of McCree, or Soldier can just, like, leave for the most part, or possibly outduel them as well. The thing is, though, that it's still risky, because, like, you're up there shooting down at the team. They're not as far away from you as you would like them to be, so, like, if there's, like, a Roadhog down there, they can just, like, hook you down from here. You can just get bursted down up here, so it's a risky place to stand. If you're someone like McCree or Soldier, it's a little easier to get away with it, just because you're a relatively sturdy, like, high ground defender. But, you know, bear in mind, you are going to be, like, right next to them. And it's not exactly far to get back to your teammates, but it is far enough that if, like, 2 people get on you, you're probably going to die before you get back to them. But it is an option. If you're playing Roadhog, you might want to try it out, because Roadhog, like, it's very unlikely you die unless the attacking team collapses on you real well. So if you're playing against, like, a bunker comp that's kind of down here, you as Roadhog might decide to come up here and just try to go for a hook on somebody from this angle, because now you're around the shield, which makes it a little bit easier. And if they jump on you as Roadhog, you'll pretty much get back to your teammates, so it's relatively risk-free. Obviously, it's not completely risk-free. You could, like, get hooked down. They might actually collapse on you properly. Who knows, right? It's not risk-free, but Roadhog will typically get away with it. And we're really just planning to play around here. You've got a nice long sightline if you're a longer range DPS, or you're a support like Ana, Batista, Zen. You can sit, like, back here and use the fountain as cover, and you've got the nice line of sight where you can see, because all your teammates are going to be, like, here-ish, or maybe, like, back here-ish. You'll see everybody from back here. You can use it as cover. I don't like standing here. Like, a lot of people like to stand here. The reason I don't like standing here is because this is still a flank route. And once you're up here, right, that means the attacking team is basically here at this point. It's now easier for them to use that flank route, because now they can just come through this corner and they can get in there instead. So if you're stood, like, right here as, like, Ana or Zen, and someone, like, crouch walks up behind you, like, bearing in mind your team's over here, they're not looking over that way. They can't even see up the staircase if they are over here. So if you're here, you've got to, like, watch this corner really closely, because it's not exactly a far distance once they turn that corner to get to you. So a lot of people like standing here. I don't like standing here. You also have to worry about, like, that corner over there, which will frequently have someone like Hanzo trying to, like, get a cheeky kill in from over there. So this is, like, a scary place to stand. You're relatively low risk from here, but you're not completely free from this either, because they might just come around this corner suddenly, and if you're playing like Ana, and you're stood right here, and they just, like, flow around this corner onto you, you're fucking dead, dude. Like, where are you gonna go from here, right? So I don't like standing here, but a lot of people do like to stand there. This is just a dramatically safer location. Now, you still can't quite properly see the staircase over there, because these are kind of in the way, but you will see the top of somebody coming around that corner now, as long as you, like, are on this side. If you're on this side, you know, it's harder to see it. But this is just way safer. It does make you more vulnerable to this flank, just because you're closer to it now, but as I've already established, this is a fairly uncommon route people take. So it's not usually as big of a deal. This is a very common route for people to take, so it's much scarier. You can, if you're playing like Ana, sit all the way back here, and this is, like, extremely safe. You can see all of the flank routes coming, but you can't see into the choke point properly, because this is in the way. So if your teammates push up, they're going to break line of sight to you, and you might not see them behind the fountain either. But this is an extremely safe position to sit in. You can see all of the flank routes simultaneously, and usually your team's going to be around that region, so it's, like, decent enough, but you might have to move down to actually keep line of sight of them as the fight progresses. But this is an extremely safe place to stand. Not really tenable for a DPS to sit here, because you can't see into the choke point properly at all. This is just too in the way for a DPS, but someone like Ana, you don't need to see the enemy team. If you're more concerned about just safety, this is a really safe place to be in. You do still have to watch the flank routes, of course, but, like, you stand here, you can see them all in, like, one field of view, right? So it's not exactly hard to keep track of them. And they've got a long way to get to you as well. So it's very safe, but not a particularly aggressive line of sight, and it's not tenable for people that do need to see the enemy team, because this is just too in the way, unfortunately. But that's pretty much the point, and if we lose a fight over here, we'll probably still get another point, or another chance, because if their payload's like here, they have to push all the way over here to actually capture the checkpoint. So if we get wiped over here, we will get back in time to try again. They'll be pretty close to the end of the track, but you can make it back again to have another try, provided your teammates don't just get, like, massively staggered and you have to go in, like, one at a time, right? Like, that can always happen. As you get pushed a little bit further back, like over here, like you might end up having to defend from this position when they do break the choke point. So then you have to worry about this doorway over here, because people can just duck through there. And if you're sitting like back here, like you're playing a support and you're playing real far back at this point, you might not see them go through the doorway to get into there. So you do have to watch over here now as you get pushed back. But it's pretty hard to actually push through this doorway and actually get much done, just because it's easy to see into this room, and you've still got a fair bit of distance to cover to get to the enemy team, so it's not commonly used to get a flank on people, but you'll often see like a Roadhog or a Hanzo or a McCree poke around that corner just to try and like get a pick on somebody, if they're having trouble just like getting a clean engage on you. So bear that in mind, that it's there, but it's not a common place for people to get through. We're really playing all around this choke point, though. As soon as they break through that choke point, they've done like 80% of the work on this map at this point, because then they just have to get like a clean engage over here. And there's really, like, the further you go back, like, the less good places there are for you to stand, really. You get, like, very pressed up against the wall. If you're a support, you can, or a DPS, you can sit over here, and this is, like, decent enough, but it's not exactly a safe position. The enemy team is going to be very close to you, and there's not, like, massive cover up here, so, because bearing in mind the payload goes that way, so this corner ends up, like, not being great cover as they push in, unfortunately. So this is like the best you get is like a longer range DPS. A support can sit like kind of back here and just see their teammates, so that's nice. It's quite safe back here, but you do have to watch if you're standing like back here or back here. You do now have to watch over here, because if they figure out that you're sat up there, someone can easily just duck through this corner and come around to get you. And if you're stood here, you can't really see it, right? They could go around there and you might not catch them. And if you're a support, you completely can't see if you're sat down here, right? So you've got to watch then people coming this way to try and get you, but this is also not a super common route people take, just because it's kind of out of the way to get there, right? Because you have to like break off and go all the way over here to start going down the route, so people don't often do it. But if they figure out there's like 2 supports and a soldier or something sat over here, someone like a Reaper will definitely at that point be tempted to try and come through here. Now, if you're sat up here, you know, you can just peep in and you'll get it, but you just have to remember to actually check, because if you're not checking and Reaper's like right here, by the time you realize he's coming, you're in a really bad spot. But that's pretty much that checkpoint. It's got some funky flank routes that you have to keep an eye on, but mostly just that one over there. This one does exist, bear it in mind, people will use it, but it's much less common than that one over there, which is extremely common. So now let's talk about the second checkpoint. So the second checkpoint, we've got some cool high ground we can take advantage of on this map as the defending team now, where we can sit up here, and this is some pretty wicked high ground, because the attacking team, like, they're looking up at that to try and get you as they push round here, right? So it's extremely annoying. Like, if there's like a soldier, a Junkrat, a McCree sat up there, Hanzo sat up there, oh boy, is that just like one of the worst feelings in the world. So they need to try and like get you off of this high ground. They can't really like let you sit up here. If you're playing, you gotta be careful that, like, if you're playing, like, Widow and you're sat up here, like, it's not really a great line of sight for Widow, you're pretty close to them. And if, like, somebody jumps up here, you do have a pretty far way to go to get back to safety, because your team's gonna be either down here or over here most of the time. So if you're up here trying to do something aggressive as, like, Widow and they jump on you, you've got kind of a far way to go, right? And this is true of everyone still, but people like, you know, Soldier can just run away, McCree can duel most people that jump on him, Ash can coach gun off of the person, right? Like, they've got ways to break off quickly, but bear in mind you do have a fairly long way to go to get back to safety, so be careful, like, doing this, because if they've got people that can contest you, like, if, like, a Winston and a D.Va jump up here, or a Winston and a Genji jump up here, like, it's gonna be pretty scary for you. You do have far to go, but this is some pretty strong high ground, and if they don't, like, contest you, dude, it's easy. It's such an easy high ground to take advantage of. Be wary of getting halted off as well, because it's possible you'll, like, duck back out of cover, and then Halt comes over the corner and just yanks you off the high ground, right? So if you're breaking, if there's an Orisa down there, and you're breaking back to reload or heal or something, go a little bit further back than you normally would, just because it's really easy to get halted off of here, and if, like, the first you know it's coming is it comes over this corner, you're getting yanked off, so you know there's an Orisa down there and you don't know if she has halt, just assume that she does, and back up a little bit further than usual, just in case. but this is great to take advantage of. So we can feasibly defend at several points along here, because this is usually where we'll go for the first defense right here. This is still pretty far away from the attacking team spawn at this point, because they spawn from this room over here once they capture the point. So they've got a decent walk back, so that's like far enough away that this is a feasible spot to defend from. And it's kind of easy to keep track of all the ways the attacking team can come from you right now, because this is it. This is the extent of their options. They've got the door over there, they've got the door and the top over there, that door and that alleyway right there. That's kind of it. So it's easy to keep track of everything that's coming. The problem is with sitting over here is if you're in a bad spot, you've got to go all the way back here to get, like, out of line of sight and back to, like, relative safety again. So that's kind of scary, but this is, like, a pretty good place to defend from still. They do have to, like, come at you from one location pretty much, so you can set the bunker up here. You've got your high ground defender sat up there having a great time, you know? And the most you have to worry about if you're defending this way is, like, somebody poking around that corner and trying to get you. Because, obviously, if they're pushing in this way, someone like, you know, classic soft flank, right? We can have a Roadhog, a Hanzo, a McCree poke around this corner. They're looking past the shield, they try and get a kill, and they just break line of sight immediately, so if they are in trouble. So that's something to bear in mind over there. So, you know, that's kind of scary, and there's a health kit over there as well, so it's, like, really safe for them, but, so you gotta bear that in mind, but other than that, they can't really do anything tricky to you. It's just a matter of them, like, getting up here to force on you. So this is a good point to start defending from. We can start defending from back here as well. This is safer because we've got more options behind it. Like, we can break line of sight if we're in a bad spot and then just back up and retreat and, like, defend from back here if we have to, right? So this is a safer position, but we do concede a fair bit of ground by doing that. And also, if we defend over here, right? Like, if we defend over here and we lose a fight, like, they're gonna be at, like, that corner by the time we get back again, because our spawn as the defending team from this checkpoint is pretty close, because we're gonna spawn from this room down here. So, if we lose the fight over there, we're gonna be, like, getting back here by the time they're getting to this corner, right? So, we can lose over there and then still definitely have another chance to fight from still a pretty good position. So this is a good place to start defending from, just because it's a good defense location, and we definitely get to take advantage of another good defensive position if we lose over here. Now, if a bunch of people get staggered, you don't necessarily get to take advantage of it. You can get snowballed on, but in an ideal world, we would defend here. If we lose a fight, no big deal, we now start defending from over here instead, and this is also fine because now we're using the bridge as a choke point. So it's a good fallback as well as a good initial option. So once you get pushed back a little bit though, you have to start worrying about flanking at this point, because from here, the attacking team, like, you can see them if they try to go that way, right? So the flank is, like, really easy to see coming. Like, Reaper can't even, like, teleport around there out of line of sight. So it's, like, really easy to keep track of that. If you are back here, it is possible for Reaper to, like, teleport from there into that room, but you will almost never see that happen. It does sometimes happen, though. But once you get pushed back a little bit, you do now have to worry about flanking. If you were sitting up here as a high ground defender, if we can actually get up there, you do have to worry about getting flanked from over here, because anybody with vertical mobility can really easily flank you from over here. But you don't need vertical mobility either, because they can come around and just use this staircase to get up here as well. By the way, this is where the Sombra will be. Almost 100%. Like, look at that. It's classic Sombra right there. And then they get up on you. So if you are a high ground defender, you have to worry about getting flanked from over here, so bear that one in mind. And you have to worry about getting flanked from here if you're down here as well, because remember, if, like, you're back here, you can't see someone go around that way until they're, like, on this ledge above you pretty much, or they might come around that way as well. So Reaper goes up there. If you know there's a Reaper on their team and you haven't seen Reaper in a while, maybe be a little bit concerned that he's about to drop down on top of you, right? Also, this is a map where you're pretty likely to get flanked by people like McCree and Soldier, because they can go around there and it's safe, and then they get up there behind you, right? So if you're sitting further back towards this bridge and, like, Soldier or McCree come around this corner and try to get you, then it's reasonably likely they'll actually succeed, because there's not exactly a lot of cover over here. And this is, like, pretty safe for them, honestly. Like, if you come around this corner and you're playing, like, Soldier or McCree, like, the worst you have to worry about is getting, like, blown up by another long-range DPS as you come around here, because you're gonna be really far away from them. It's very difficult to get collapsed on from over here, so it is pretty safe for even the non-conventional flankers, so you do have to worry about that over here as well. And then as you get pushed further back, now it becomes difficult to keep track of this inner area over here, so somebody can go through this door over here, come around the side this way, and then bam, you can get flanked from over here. This is our spawn right now, but if we've lost the first checkpoint, it isn't, so they can come through here. And then, bam, you're getting flanked from here, you can get flanked from over here, right? So as you get pushed further and further back along, like, it starts out where you pretty much can't get flanked, because you can see everything, but then, oh, now I'm back here, now I can get flanked from over there. I can get flanked from over here, but it's easy to see. Up, now I'm back here. Now it's getting difficult to keep track of both locations, so now I have to worry about getting flanked from here and over there as well. This is also one of those maps where the attacking team can decide to do something different, because if they're kind of like beating their head against this choke point for a while, and this just isn't working, they can decide, fuck it, that's not working, and they can go this way. And this is like relatively easy to get your teammates to agree to go this way with you, because it's not a huge deviation. And then they're coming at you from over here, and this is a way better angle to attack from. It's just not the angle the payload's coming from, so not the angle people will usually come from, because this is like a good angle. They've got cover over here to use as well. They've got a little bit of high ground. They can get up there to use that high ground, so this is like a good angle to stage an attack from. It's just the payload comes from over there, so this is not usually where they come from. But if they've beat their head against that choke point for a while, they might decide to do this. There's also a large health kit here, right? So it makes it even easier to stage an offense from here. So this will happen sometimes. If you haven't seen the enemy team for a while over here, you're sitting like over here, and you're like, where are they? Like, get ready, because they might come from over there at you. And if you're stood, like, over here, and they come that way at you, like, that's pretty scary, right? Because if you're stood over there, and you have to come all this way round, because if they're looking at you, they can see you the whole time, so you have to either cut into the bank, or go all that way back round to actually, like, get to cover from this angle from them. So it's kind of scary if you're, like, stood all the way over here, and you don't realize they start coming from that direction until too late. Which they can do, because if they come through those doors, like, you can't see them start going that way. So it is possible to, if you're not, like, paying attention, you can think like, man, it's taking them a really long time to regroup, and then, like, bam, they're coming around that corner before you know it, and then you're, like, caught with your, caught well off guard, and then bam, you get killed before you can actually, like, get back into a safer location. So bear that in mind as well. That does happen sometimes. And so we can defend over there. That's a good place to start. We can defend there. We can defend here. We can defend here. And we can defend from back here as well. Like, this is also tenable to defend from here, because we're close enough that we can, like, poke out of the choke a little bit to contest the point with our tanks, and then everybody else can stay, like, back here. So we've got a lot of places we can defend from. As we get pushed further back as well, like, we as the defenders can now start using this high ground as well. This is, like, really good for long-range DPS. Like, McCree can't use this because it's too far away for his fall-off damage, unfortunately, but long DPS can do this. Soldier, Ashe, Widow, Hanzo, they can all use this. Makes it harder to get flanked from this angle because you can really easily see it, but you do actually have to worry about getting flanked from down here now, right? Because if you're stood up here, bam, suddenly they can go down under this way. Don't fall off the map. They can come under this way, and you wouldn't know until they're getting behind you at this point. So now you do have to actually peek down here now and then to make sure that you're not going to get flanked from this angle as well. And this is a relatively common flank if they figure out that you're sat up here. It's not that, like, if they were already going to flank that way, it's not a huge difference if they suddenly go this way to try and sneak up on you. This is also a sometimes Sombra location, but it's not a large health kit, so they don't like to use it. The other, like, really common Sombra spot is right here, just so you know. But, you know, you gotta worry about that flank at this point, but it makes, like, this is a great line of sight, right? Like, you can see fucking everything. You've got a health kit here if you need it. There's lots of cover you can use. This is, like, really safe place to stand. Pretty much the most you have to worry about is getting flanked from down here, or a long-range DPS sat over there on that high ground contesting you, because, like, Widow or Hanzo could hop up there, or Ashe even can hop up there and start shooting at you. So that's, like, the biggest threat to you at that point. but really safe place to stand, like, very hard to die. Supports can also sit back here, but, you know, you are kind of far away from your teammates, because they're going to be, like, more over there, so if you're playing a support like Anna, and you're sat all the way over here, it can make it difficult for you, but it is very safe at the same time. So if, like, they don't have any divers or flankers, and you're playing Anna, you can sit over here, and it's, like, pretty safe. Like, it's very unlikely you'll die, but if they have flankers or divers, and you're over here as a support, it's possible you'll get caught and not have time to regroup with your teammates before they kill you, so bear that in mind, but really safe otherwise. But that's pretty much that checkpoint. There's a lot of options for the attacking team on this map, so this is not a commonly held checkpoint, but it is still feasible that you'll win on that checkpoint. So now, third checkpoint. So we've really got, like, one thing we're banking on for this checkpoint, and that's, like, basically that's all we got, right? So we're gonna sit back here for the most part. Like, they're gonna come through here, that's gonna open, you know. Also, if you're gonna defend in here, like, defend from back here, but if you're gonna, like, push up, at least wait for this doorway to close, right? Like, at least wait for that door to close after they push through before you do anything. But, like, pretty much we'll sit back here, and what we're really doing, like, sometimes we get to hold it in, like, this spot, that's nice, but not common. We're really planning to use this as the choke point now. This is, like, the best we get on this checkpoint. And it's pretty good, like, this is a commonly held place, so it's not that bad, but this is really all we get, right? Like, if we lose here, this is it, right? Like, if their payload is here, and we lose a fight, like, it's bad, right? It's bad for us. Now, our spawn is really close. We're gonna spawn in here. So it is really close, but, oh boy, if we get, like, cleanly wiped here, it's pretty much done. Like, we're done. This is it. But it's a good place to defend, so just having the one spot isn't, like, that terrible, like, as long as the defending position itself is good. So, we've got high ground that we can use, so we can have, like, anybody set up here. This is close enough that even McCree can take use of it, right? So we can have them set up here. It's not, like, the best high ground in the world, because it's pretty exposed. There's not actually a lot of cover to use up here, but, you know, high ground's high ground. It's cool. You can sit over here, and it's safer to do from over here, but less aggressive. You got a health kit, so that's nice. Sombras commonly sit up here, by the way. Sombras are usually there. Sometimes they're there, but that's kind of scary to be there. Or they'll be all the way back here. Not a lot of people know this health kit actually exists. This health kit's here, so that's nice. Or they'll be down there, but that's also kind of a risky place to be. Those are the Sombra spots, though. So, but we can have a long-range DPS set up here. You do have to worry about getting flanked from there, because, like, that's not a... Like, you can get in there without necessarily being seen. And it's not exactly far for the flanker to go to get to you if you're over here. But if you're stood, like, a little bit more over here, bam, you can see them coming. So that's nice. But there's high ground we can use. That's nice. We do have to worry about getting flanked, but, like, because there's a window here, it's really easy to see it coming. Right, because no matter where you are, you can see that flank route, basically, so you're not going to get flanked from that way, as long as you are paying attention, pretty much. And, like, you're going to be looking in that direction anyway, so it's not exactly easy. It's, like, pretty hard to miss somebody going through that route. Now, if they have vertical mobility, they can flank you from over here, but this is, again, pretty easy to see coming, because there's a window here. And if you're defending over here, like, you're going to see them go that way, right? Like, you can see the person going that way. So you can get flanked on this map, but as long as you're paying attention, it can't really happen because the flank routes are very easy to see, but, like, I've seen people get surprised. Like, I've seen people just not be watching that direction and get flanked, right? I've seen people, like, kind of be, like, brawling it out kind of over here and miss, like, a Reaper slip through that doorway while no one was looking, and then the Reaper, like, surprises them, you know? Like, it's possible you get pushed a little bit further back so that, like, they're fighting you from over here, and you're, like, here. So now, suddenly, you can't really see that doorway anymore, and that's behind you at this point. So it's possible to get flanked at that point, but if you're defending from, like, over here, you aren't getting flanked. It's too easy to see the routes as long as somebody's paying attention. And, like, the attacking team can't really do anything fancy to you on this map. This is not a very good map for Pharah. Pharah, like, shows up a lot, but there's, like, not a lot of geometry for Pharah to use as cover. Like, she ends up floating in open space a lot, so she's gonna be, like, mostly peeking over these, this this wall at you, and that's basically what Pharah's options. Like, They can't do much other than just, like, brawl it out with you here, pretty much, and just, like, try to win the fight. May's also really good here, you know, saying no cover anywhere, nice place to wall people off, great main map, right? So, and like, usually what happens is, like, if you kill them here, it suddenly gets really hard, like, it's really bad to lose momentum on this checkpoint, because if they die here, they'll start trying to come through this way without a payload, and that's really hard to, like, come through this big-ass open room without the payload. Now, what they're meant to do in that position is start going around this way, because it's easier to, like, get a good angle to engage from, and you're exposed to the defending team much less while you're trying to get back to the payload, but frequently people just start coming through this way, and at that point it's not that hard to defend, but once they start coming through that way, like, they are on you much more suddenly, right? Because they're in cover the whole time until they're, like, right next to you. So if they start coming around that way, the best thing to do is, like, fall back a little bit, just get a little bit more, unless, like, you're a team that wants to brawl it out, in which case you don't care about having breathing room, but if you're playing a team where you've got, like, some long-range DPS, the best thing you can do once you start seeing them go that way is just back up, get a little bit more breathing room, and play, like, a little bit further back, because you can sit back here and, like, fight from there, you can sit back here and defend from here, and that's all perfectly safe. So that's the best thing you can do if you start seeing them go around that way instead. But, like, that's really it. Like, this is a really straightforward checkpoint. There is almost nothing fancy that can really happen on this checkpoint. Like, it's a big empty room with a slight incline on it, and, like, one only okay bit of high ground, right? Like, you can sit back here, and, like, that's cool, you know, this is really safe, if not aggressive. You do have to worry about getting flanked from there now, because, like, you can see that doorway, but it's possible that, like, if you don't see him, or you see them go that way, but you don't, like, keep track of, like, if they died or something, like, they might still manage to get the drop on you if you, like, your attention lapses for a second, so no, you had to worry about that a little bit, but again, you can see them. You can't really see that route anymore, so someone might get the drop on you going that way, because if, like, you can't see over there from this angle, so unless somebody tells you someone's going that way, you won't know until they start coming from, like, this direction at you, so you do have to be a bit more aware of that location if you sit over here, but, you know, not a lot can happen on this point. Like, it's really straightforward. It's, like, pretty much, like, the most directly obvious checkpoint in the entire game, right? Like, we have one choke point, we will play around the choke point, and there are flanking routes, but you can see them so easily, they're practically non-existent. So, yeah, that's kind of that checkpoint. There's really not a lot to say about it, to be honest with you. Like, there's really nothing fancy going on in there. So let's go around now and talk about the attacking team. So, when you're attacking Dorado, you can go for the bunker comp, as we established earlier. Really easy to get set up on this payload. Like, it's a convenient shape as well to set up on, because you've got this nice bit of cover right at the front where you can, like, peek over the top of it and stuff. So, it's a nice convenient shape, which is also nice, but, like, you're so safe back here. Like, there's practically no risk getting set up on this payload. Now, you do want, for at least the first and second checkpoint, maybe not the third checkpoint, but even maybe then, you want somebody that can contest high ground, because it is something you have to worry about for the first two checkpoints, almost guaranteed, right? Because we're going to start pushing through here. There's going to be people up there. There's going to be people up there. Now, our plan is pretty much push under them and hope that if they jump down to fight us, like, great, fantastic. They're fighting us in a less great angle than they would be if they just retreated back there, right? So we can just, like, fight it out with them here, and they're jumping down at us, so we're already, like, set up if we're a bunker comp or, like, we're a dive comp, so, like, them jumping down on us is great, right? We get to fight them in a better angle for us. Or we push under them and they rotate back around this way, and, like, you know, that's expected, whatever. That's kind of solved most of the high ground problem by itself, just because they rotated off of it. But somebody's gonna stay up there. Like, there's almost always somebody that stays on the high ground to contest you. And there'll often be people on this rooftop right here, like Widows, Hanzos, they love to sit up here. Even Symmetras, dude. Symmetra can get up there. They love to sit up on that rooftop and, like, shoot down at people. So you want somebody that can contest high ground. And, you know, doesn't matter how you decide to do it. You can have a diver, a flanker. You just run a dive comp. You can have a long-range DPS that can just hopefully fight it out with them, but they are at a disadvantage because they're firing at high ground, whereas they're firing down from high ground. So, you know, you want somebody that can contest the high ground one way or another. It doesn't really matter how you decide to do it, but you want someone that can, because there'll be people up there, there'll be people up there, there's gonna be people up there, and, like, you're fighting it out over here, dude, they love to do it. They love, like, you fighting fighting over here. Soldier, and McCree, Ash, Anna, they all love to, like, come over here and just try and fight you from up there. You just can't let them do it. You just have to stop them. And if you got no one to contest them, dude, just, like, come around and just, like, fucking stand here instead, right? Like, just come and fight up here if you have to, right? Like, don't let them do it. You can't let them just sit up there and fire at you from the high ground. And this is true of any map that's got, like, feasible high ground for the defenders to use. You cannot let them sit up there and just shoot down at you in the entire time. You have to stop them. So it doesn't matter how you do it, but you have to do it. So we do have this nice flanking route right at the start that we can take advantage of. Anyone can use it, like any flanker can use it. People with vertical mobility are a little better coming through here, just because you don't have to do the staircase at the end, right? Like Genji can just hop up the top and that's like it, right? Like his flank route is much easier coming this way, but anyone can use this flanking route. Absolutely anyone. Even like non-conventional flankers can do it, but I don't recommend doing it as a non-conventional flanker, but anyone can use this flanking route, so that's really good. People often forget to check this, like, especially in lower SRs, people often forget to watch this angle, so if you're playing someone and you just, like, crouch walk through this room, like, you have got a pretty good chance of catching a support off guard, because Annas usually sit, like, a little bit further back, like, around here, so, dude, if they're not watching, you'll get the drop on them, like, and then they have to, like, turn around and try and stop you, and at that point, you just, like, jump down and, like, disengage. Just like that, right? So, great flanking route, really easy to use, highly recommend. Do try and take advantage of this angle if you can. Like, if you're a hero that can get up there, do take advantage of that angle, because people never watch it, dude. Like, that's the thing, is that it is uncommonly used, so most people don't know it's there. And, like, people, even if they do, they frequently don't check. So if you're a hero that can take advantage of this flanking route, like, even if you're a diva, dude. Even if you're a diva, a Winston, a Hammond, dude, like, you can get over this and just, like, start fighting their backline, right? Like, because they're going to be sat back here most of the time, right? Like, a lot of defenders sit, like, back here. So you come over here, if you're Diva, Winston, Hammond, whatever, you're fighting the people that you want to be fighting. And it was, like, extremely easy to get back here. Like, they're not contesting you the entire time you're doing that route. So you're just here, you're just at them. So if you can take advantage of that angle, absolutely do. It's one of the most underappreciated flanking routes in the entire game. It's such a good flank. And, like, people just don't do it because it's, like, kind of out of the way to get there. You know, I gotta go all the way around here. I have to have some kind of vertical mobility. But, like, dude, it's such a good angle. If you can use it, try and use it. It's obviously way less good while they're, like, up here because they can just, like, see you going that way. And, like, you have to cover such a massive amount of ground, like, getting to the flank to get to the team, right? So it's less good while they're up here, obviously, but once they've rotated around to this angle, dude, it's so good. It's so good. Try and take advantage of it. Once we're, like, fighting it out with here, you know, we're contesting the high ground, don't let them do that, and we can now start, like, poking around this way. Like, if we're having a lot of trouble getting through this choke point, nothing says we have to try and get through this choke point first, right? Like, nothing says we have to go through this way. We could go through this way instead, and you know, this angle is way easier to attack from, dude. We do have to go through this kind of narrow funnel, but the thing is with going this way is we have slight high ground. We've got cover, right? And we can start, like, pulling them a little bit more over this way. And if they're, like, fighting you from over here, like, they have to stand in way less convenient locations if they're longer range DPS, right? Because if they're longer range DPS, they could stand up there, but no one's going to rotate round to that angle to defend from there. So they're going to be stood, like, right there. They're going to have their, like, backs pressed up against this if they want to actually see you up there. Or, like, stood, like, way back over here. But, dude, like, let me tell you, if you start attacking from this way, and they were defending from this position, 9 times out of 10 what happens is all 6 people come and stand over here, right? So that means the Annas, the McCrees, the Zenyatas, the soldiers, they're, like, pressed up like this. So suddenly, if you, like, get on them, like, their back is already against the wall. So they already have less options. They have to, like, get around the wall to break away from you. And it's, like, not a lot of distance to travel to actually get there. So attacking from this angle is pretty good, actually. The problem is it's difficult to get, like, your team to come up this way with you, so it's commonly just going to be, like, a couple of you coming this way. But that in and of itself is, like, fine. This is still a good angle to come from, and if, like, they're still defending from over here, right? Like, if you're playing, like, Reaper, like, this is a very small amount of distance to cover. They probably didn't see you coming until you're, like, right here, so you, like, come around, you try and get somebody if you can, and if you can't, well, I reform back to my team, right? Like, it's a very easy angle to take advantage of. It puts you, like, close to them very quickly. There's a large health kit down here, so if, like, they come for you, right? Like, you can come down this way, and you can, like, just use the health kit and then disengage, right? So it's, like, really safe to do it from over here, as long as you're not doing something, like, really ridiculous. You pretty much, like, won't die doing this, as long as you're being careful. And it's, like, a good angle to start in from, right? So, like, and, like, Faras can come around this way pretty easily. Faras will frequently, like, come around this way, and you can, like, concussive blast around the corner, and you're, like, in a pretty good angle to start barraging from the side, because if they're looking, like, that way, and you just concussive blast around this corner and start barraging, like, you'll probably get somebody. They won't see it coming most of the time. You know, a barrage is obviously, like, gonna be scary to use for multiple reasons, but you can get the drop on them pretty easily from this angle, so this is a good angle to take advantage of. If you can use that angle, it's better, but this is the the best other option you get, pretty much. You can peek around here and try and get, like, because, like, if they're defending, like, here, you can peek this way and try to get a kill on them, but you are very close to the enemy team when you're doing this, so if you're, like, Hanzo, McCree, Soldier, Ash, whatever, like, you're putting yourself real close to them, so it's, like, very easy for you to get, like, hooked, halted, flashbanged, like, just headshot. Like, a lot of things can go wrong with using this to try and, like, get a cheeky kill on someone, so it's pretty risky to do this, but it'll sometimes pay off. Like, it's, you know, bear in mind you've got this as an option that you can try, but it is very risky to use this just because they're gonna be, like, right here. Like, you're very close to them when you're doing that, so be careful. But those are pretty much your options. Like, it's really the breaking of this choke point that's the hard thing. So just, like, try to take advantage of the other options you have available to you. You can get people flanking around the back over there. You can get people flanking over that way. Just somebody that's diverting attention away from the choke point. Because if you're doing nothing but just trying to get through this choke point, you've got all 6 people looking at all 6 of you trying to get through this very narrow funnel. And, like, it's a long way to go, right? Like, the choke starts here. It doesn't really end until you get here. It's a long distance to travel, so it's very hard, especially if you're pushing into, like, a bunker comp, and they've got shield breakers, they've got Maze, they've got Junkrats, you know, maybe a Symmetra, very annoying, oh god, worst, but if you're all coming through this choke point, it makes it very easy to counter that, and this is the thing with attacking most maps, is when the attacking team only really has 1 or 2 things they can feasibly do, it almost always makes it very difficult for the attacking team to break the choke point, because it's easy to counter you and anticipate what you're doing if you've only got 1 or 2 things that you can do, right? So you, as the attacking team, you want to be taking advantage of as many options as you can, because it keeps the attacking team guessing as to what you're doing. They have to react to what you're doing, right? Because the attacking team is the one that has the tempo. You're the one deciding what's happening, and the defending team is reacting to you. So if you're all coming through one direction at them, it's very easy to anticipate, it's very easy to react. So you want to take advantage of these other options. You want to keep them on the back foot. You want to keep them guessing. You want to make them react to what you're doing. So if you just keep beating your head against the choke point over and over again, like, if it didn't work the first time, it's not very likely to work the next time unless you come back with a significant ult advantage. So you want to use these alternate routes, even if, like, the flank doesn't pay off, right? Like, even if the flank doesn't kill anybody, that doesn't mean the flank wasn't successful, because the idea is that you're pulling the team apart. You're diverting their attention to other locations. If you start using that angle at the back, that means they have to actually actively be watching it, right? Because if they don't, you might kill them coming through that flank. But now, that means there's less attention being put on the choke point, which makes it easier to get through. And as the flanker does it, or the diver does it, it's pulling people away from the front, meaning that now, hopefully your team can capitalize on this numbers discrepancy at the front line. You want to do things like that, just beating your head against the choke point over and over again. If it didn't work the first time, it probably won't work the second or third time, unless you manage to swing a really high ult advantage the second time around. Which you can try and do, like you can try and encourage that by just doing a dry push and like going in with the expectation you're not going to win the fight. You're just going in to get ultimates out of the defending team. You're going to save your ultimates, and then you're going to come back with more ultimates on the next one, and hopefully you'll win that fight as a result. But, you know, unless you're going to organize that, just beating your head against it is not likely to work, because it really is just a matter of fighting it out with them. And if it didn't work the first time, probably won't the second time. It's better to start using the other options, and that's most of attacking a map, is knowing the options you have available to you. Now, Dorado actually has more options than a lot of places. Like, it's theoretically easier to break this choke than the one on Hanamura, because there's more options here, but I see more people get stuck on this choke point than the one on Hanamura, because they only beat their head against this doorway. They don't try and do that. They don't try and like go up there. They don't ever use that angle. Try and use the other angles. Just try and like use the options. They're there for a reason. Try to take advantage of them. Attacking with Mei is still pretty good here, because if you like throw a blizzard up here, like that's really obnoxious for the defending team. It's one of those things that's going to disperse them. This is also one of those choke points where Hanzo's ult might get some work done unassisted, because they like to stand kind of here. So if you're playing Hanzo, you can ult from like here's some hot tech for you, right? If they're defending like right here, right? Like if they're like right here, they have to go like all the way back there, or move into your team to get out of the dragon. So if you like come down here and ult like so, it's gonna cut right up from under their feet, and they're not gonna expect it. So you'll manage to, a lot of the time, like, as long as you don't, like, really fuck up the angle, which you might do because you're kind of making a blind shot at the choke point, right? Like, and you can use Sonic Arrow to help if you're, like, really scared of that happening. But, like, if they're not... Where's Hans? Oh, fuck. And then the dragon comes out of the ground at them right here, and they're not ready for it. You might end up killing, like, 3 people unassisted just because they weren't expecting it, right? Because I almost never see people do that, but when it does happen, it invariably kills a couple of people, because people defend here, dude. Like, they stand here, or, here, and, like... Dude, if you're like, where's Hanzo? And the first you know is the dragon coming out of the ground at you, you're gonna die a lot of the time. So that's like pretty sick to do on this choke point, just because you get to do it from down here, and that's a long tunnel they have to move out of. And Hanzo is just like good at like harassing bunker comps in general, because if nothing else, he's good at making people move once he ults, which is usually good versus bunkers. So those are good things to have for this checkpoint, but you know, pretty much just contest high ground, and if you don't manage to win this fight, just like start trying to pick them apart, pull them apart, and if nothing else, dude, if you throw 6 ultimates at a choke point, you're gonna break the choke point most of the time, right? Like, that's always a fallback. You can get a little too CP'd on this map, because it's easy for fast heroes to get back here quickly, basically. Like, it's a kind of long walk back from here, but if you're playing like Hammond or Lucio, like the geometry is very nice. Like, it's very easy for you to use to get back there quickly. So you can get a little too CP'd out here, but really once you get through there, most of the work's done for you, because once you're fighting out here, it's way easier to pick and prod at them from multiple angles, right? Because you're pushing in through here. Well, now people can come around here, and like extremely safe, right? Like if they're over there and you're like a long range hero or Roadhog and you come around here, very safe angle, and now you're like they're looking this way, right? That's where the payload's coming from. So if you're coming around this corner and like poking and prodding at them from this angle, really obnoxious. Like, you start getting lots of more ways to like poke at them now. Like, you've got more angles to take to actually poke and prod at them. You can like come through here and like try and get a pick through like this doorway, as we established earlier. Not a good flank route, but it is a good like soft flank route, just because it can give you a different angle on the shield and you can maybe get a kill on somebody. And, you know, you chuck a blizzard in here, they aren't going to be very happy about it. So they're going to have to, like, come in here, or, like, move into you, or move back, and they don't want to do most of those things usually, so Blizzard tends to get a lot of value. But now, like, you've got this nice open space, you can spread out a little bit more, poke and prod at them from multiple places. You can come up here and round this way and, like, poke at them from up here. You can come around this way if you're a flanker. If they're, like, back here, this angle is, like, even scarier now, because, like, suddenly Winston or Hammond comes over that, and just BAM! He's in the team suddenly. So that can, like, really catch people off guard as well. You've got more options at this point. It's mostly getting through that choke point that's the hard part. So now, moving on to the second checkpoint. This is, like, the moral of this story, this checkpoint is definitely contest high ground. Like, high ground is going to be the thing that loses you this checkpoint. Like, it's not really that hard to push through this checkpoint. The thing is that people just don't contest the high ground as well as they should. Because they'll just let people sit up in these positions and like, oh, it's so high. Like, it's so hard to get up there, dude. Like, what am I even supposed to do, man? Like, you're supposed to pick the not very cool heroes, basically. You're supposed to pick, like, the Winston or the Diva, and, you know, Hammond's kind of cool. People like to play Hammond, you know. You're supposed to, like, pick those heroes and, like, get up there and, like, contest those people, and Genji, what have you, you know, somebody. This is a pretty good checkpoint for Pharah, because you've got some geometry you can work with here, and you can, like, contest the high ground defenders as Pharah as well. If they're, like, up there, and you, like, boost up from over here, you're, like, right on top of them, you might kill them before they know what the fuck. Careful if it's McCree. Because he doesn't really care if you do that, but you know, you can do that. You've got to contest it, basically. You can't let people sit up there. You can't let people sit up there or back there, which sometimes happens as well. Like, you just can't let them do it. You have to get them off one way or the other. And, again, it doesn't really matter how you do it, but, like, you have to, dude. That's the reason people lose this checkpoint, is they aren't dealing with the people that are on the high ground, because this is an incredibly oppressive angle to be getting shot from. There's a soldier up there just, like, shooting down at you the whole time. You just want to die, dude. Like, you just want life to be over. You gotta deal with it, dude. You gotta deal with the people that are over there. You can't let, like, the Widow, Hanzo, Ashe, whatever the fuck is sat back there, sit back there. You have to do something about it. Doesn't matter what, don't care how you do it, you gotta do something. So when we come through here, this is largely just a case of, like, fighting it out with the enemy team. There isn't too much you can do if they're defending you from right here, because you can't do anything too fancy yet, right? Like, you're pretty much just brawling it out with them. The most you can do is come through this angle for the soft flank, and that's kind of it. You can't really do anything else too fancy. You can get, if you got a Ashe or a Widow or a Hanzo, they can get up here and, like, get this angle. Like, this is a pretty good angle if they're defending down here. This is kind of annoying. It makes them definitely play a lot closer to this wall, which makes it easier to push up and actually get the engage on them. And, like, this is, like, pretty safe space for you to the longer range heroes to stand. So this is a good angle to use if you can take advantage of it, but you more or less can't do anything too fancy yet. Now, the cool thing about fighting over here, though, is that if you throw an AoE ultimate into here, the enemy team is usually going to be very clumped together right here, just because they're fighting in a very narrow street. So if you throw a Blizzard in here, you throw a Graviton in here, you throw a Self-Destruct behind them, the defending team does not have many options, right? Like, if you throw a Blizzard right here, they pretty much just have to back up and concede ground or move into, like, you to fight, right? And if they were positioned badly, they might just die. So it's one of those areas where, like, the AoE ultimates, like Riptire as well, like, those kinds of ultimates are very punishing in this location, just because the defending team, by the architecture of the map, they tend to knit very close together, so AoE ultimates are very good at punishing that effect. Like, you can dragon down this street, right? Like, if you dragon down this street, they have to get out of the street, because it takes up more or less the entire street. So they have to, like, come off to the side and, like, move into you, or, like, concede a lot of ground, or just, like, break off into the side. But that in and of itself is fine if they break off, because that gives your team some breathing room to, like, turn this corner, and now you're in, like, a slightly more favorable angle. Like, this is harder to push into than pushing into this, right? Especially when the payload's going to be here, taking up most of this center area. So those AoE ultimates, like Emp, right? Emp's really good if they're all clustered together as well. Like, Those are the things that are really good to have for this checkpoint in particular, but the main thing is contesting high ground. Now, we've covered the flanking routes here already kind of exhaustively, so we won't go over them again on this one, but we got, like, over there, up there, under if they're further, but like, if they're back there, you go under rather than over. You can go up there. Even if you're a non-conventional flanker, it's pretty safe to do that. McCree soldiers, they get a lot of kills up there doing that, and it's relatively low risk for the most part. We've got that angle over there. We can get up there and just kind of, if they're defending over here, we can play somebody like Reaper, get up there, drop down on top of them, our ultimates, cool stuff like that. Once we get past this initial area, the map massively opens up to us, and we have way more options. Now we even get the opportunity to get our own people up on the high ground. We can now start vying for control over this high ground. And dude, if we get control of this high ground as the attacking team, the defending team is extremely unhappy about it. If you're sat up here with high ground attackers and like they don't have anybody that can feasibly contest you, or you're sat over here as like high ground attackers and they don't have anyone that can contest you, it's a kill box. Like, look at it. Where are they gonna go? The most they can do is just huddle behind their shield and, like, that corner, that door, and those walls, right? Like, that's it. This whole space is terrible to be in if you don't have control of the high ground. And the defending team, back against the wall, what are they going to do about it, right? So if you can get control of this high ground as the attacking team, there is close to no way the defending team can actually hold it, just because as long as you just sit and like prod at them from the high ground for long enough, eventually they're gonna crack. Like, they're going to eventually, because you've got the team pushing in up there, and you've got like Hanzo, Ashe, Widow, Soldier, whatever the fuck, just sat up here just bombarding them constantly. Dude, it's the worst. And then if you've got like the Mei in there, right, because like all they've got is those corners and the shield they can stand behind. So if, like, you've got a Mei, and you've got somebody up here as well, forcing the enemy team to stand behind their shields or near one of the few points of cover they actually have, AoE ultimates like Blizzard, Graviton, Riptire, they're gonna just wipe the team right then and there, because we have forced them to sit together. Like, we have forced them to huddle together because there's no cover to use. They've only got the shield. So if we can get control of the high ground, it's a done deal. The thing is, we just can't let them have control of the high ground, because the same is true of us, right? If we're attacking and we're trying to push into this, it's a fucking kill box, dude, right? Like, we're huddling on the payload, just like praying to God the Bastion doesn't kill us, right? Like, we have to get them off of the high ground. We have to contest them. This is the checkpoint where you might consider just fully shifting into a dive comp, even if you were playing a bunker comp previously, because controlling the high ground is that important for attacking this checkpoint. It might be worth a full team comp shift to try and get control of it, because it's that good for this section specifically. There's just nothing here. But you know, we covered all the flank routes while defending, so we won't go and cover all of them again while attacking. They're good. They're all really good options. You just don't have many early on, but the further you push into this checkpoint, the more options you have available to you, which is quite unique as far as the maps go. Usually, as you push further into the map, the idea is your options as the attacking team slowly close off, because they want, the way the map design goes, they want the attacking team to push the third checkpoint most of the time. They want the attacking team to do that, so usually the maps have lots of options early on, and then as you get to the third checkpoint, all the options close off, and you only really get like one, maybe two routes you can get to go to the defending team, because then the defending team get to have that like back to the wall, defend the Alamo kind of situation. So usually you don't get more options as you push into the map. Dorado is kind of the exception for the second checkpoint at least, where right now, very few options. We maybe go off that way, but like they'll see us doing it, so it's not a huge option. But hey, now that way is tenable. We get a little bit further in. Now that way's tenable. Now we can contest the high ground. Maybe now we can get it set up on there as well. Hey, now that we've pushed up this way, we could push through here. Maybe do like a little soft flank to try and get them this way, right? Like, more options become available to us as we push through this checkpoint. So it's one of those things where, like, if you can break this corner right here, it just gets easier from that point on, because the checkpoint opens up for us as the attacking team at that point. And if we get stuck here, like we can't get through this way, dude, no problem. Let's go this way. It's actually pretty easy to get your teammates to go this way. It's not a huge deviation. And if they're defending over here, we covered it, right? Like, if you get caught unaware because suddenly the entire team comes from this angle, like, you've got to go back through the bank or, like, come all this way around to get to safety again. You might just kill them before they have time to, like, properly rotate if they weren't really paying attention. So, big thing for this checkpoint, contest high ground. Not to sound like a broken record, it's extremely important for Dorado's second checkpoint. So, third checkpoint, dude, we've got very few options. There's not a lot we can do right here. So, the biggest thing is, it's not really hard to get to this bridge usually. This is the biggest thing to bear in mind for this checkpoint. If you get here and you die, if you lose momentum on this checkpoint, immediately stop trying to push through this way. It is very difficult to get through this room, even just like coming around this way. If your payload is like up here, you still have to do this whole bit right here without the payload in front of you. That's a lot of ground to cover, dude. If you're moving into a bunker comp and you've got to do all of this without the payload, that's really hard. That's very difficult to do. Stop trying to go that way if you lose momentum. Go this way. It's way easier to get the angle. We can come up here, we can drop down on them and start a fight if we want to do that. We can come around this way, and then bam, we're just at the payload. Now we can like poke and prod at them from the payload itself, because if we come this way, they're gonna like back up a little bit, right? Like, the tanks will stay up here, but the rest of them are gonna back up. So it gives us a little bit more breathing room, and now we can like maybe get in, and now we're just back on the payload, right? Because just think about the time you spend exposed to the enemy team, right? Because you're exposed to the enemy team, like, kind of from here, but, like, really once you get here, you're pretty exposed. You've got to do this whole journey to get to the payload, right? And you're exposed that whole time. If you go this way, you are not exposed until you get right here, and then the payload's right there. You have to cover dramatically less distance while being exposed to the enemy team. Same if you come this way. And if somebody's up here, dude, like, I don't care what DPS is stood up here and if they have a support with them. If your whole team comes up this way, they will jump down. They are not going to stay on this high ground by themselves anymore at that point. They're going to back way the fuck off, or they're just going to drop down. If they're like right here, and they're like, oh, fuck, they're jumping down. So you've solved the high ground problem right then and there. So just do not keep going that way. Don't do it. Don't keep going that way. Go this way. Instead, it's much easier. Again, control high ground. It's not hard to contest this high ground, because even, like, you can see them kind of the entire time they're up there. It's not big enough for them to really back up and use the ground as cover, so it's not really hard to contest this high ground, but you do still have to do it. Like, somebody still has to take responsibility for contesting it. It's easier now for the your own long-range DPS to do it, just because this is not as good cover-wise for them, so it's more feasible for them to do it now, but again, somebody has to do it. Somebody has to contest this high ground. So, unfortunately, you don't get many options. There's no cool flanking you can really do. You should be paying attention for if you get the opportunity to come this way, which basically is, can anybody see me through this window, right? Like, is anybody looking? Or, like, are they pushed far enough up that they can see me, right? Because if they're back here, they can't see me, right? Like, I could go that way, and they wouldn't actually see me start going that way. And if nobody's looking through that window, like, if I'm coming around this way, right? Because I can come through this door and look, and I can think, all right, I don't see anybody there, and I don't see anybody there. That means you can go this way now, because nobody will actually see you going this way, so now you can use this as a flanking route. You can make it a little bit safer to do that if you're prepared to put in a little more legwork, because you can go this way, come around here, and do the same thing. You can check from here, and you don't have to make this jump, which you might get spotted in. But you do have to put in some more legwork, and if it doesn't pay off, then you wasted more time, right? Because bearing in mind, if you're attacking, your spawn is actually all the way over here. Right, this is a pretty bad attacking spawn. Like, you're actually all the way over here. So if you're gonna go that way, you have to break off and, like, do this movement. And we're in 300% speed right now, so, like, you have to do this at regular speed, right? So that's a long movement, and if it doesn't pay off, then you wasted a fair chunk of time, which is bad. So, but it does make it a little safer to go this way. You're less likely to get spotted, but it's a more hefty time investment. But if you just peek here, and you don't see anybody over there, and you don't see anybody there, you can now use this as a flank, because they won't actually see you coming this way anymore. Now, you do still have to have vertical mobility, unfortunately, but if you come around this corner, and nobody's looking this way, you can, like, do this, and then go all the way around here. And then, like, you know, if they're, like, long-range DPS supports, they like to sit pretty much back here most of the time. So if you manage to do this movement without getting spotted, like, you're gonna get a kill. So this is something you should watch for if you're playing a flanker, like the opportunity to break off and go this way. Because if it all goes well, right, and, you know, a few things have to go right. There has to be nobody there, or there. You have to do this, and then they have to not be looking this way. But if that does all happen, you're there. You're on them. So if you're playing somebody like Reaper, like, you come up behind the Zenyatta, and you go, bang, bang, conk, he's dead. And then you just move through the enemy team like that, right? Like, if it all does go well, it's pretty fucking free. The thing is, a lot of things have to go well. But you should be looking for that opportunity if you are somebody that can take advantage of this route, because if it all does go well, it's going to go really well. And it's relatively low risk, because if you get up here and you realize this step's all going to fall apart, like, you come this way and people start looking, like, no problem, dude. Just break it off. Just immediately come back around again. And, like, they're not going to chase you, right? Like, they're not going to come all that way over to chase you. So, like, if stage 1 goes well, but stage 2 doesn't go well, no big deal. You lost a little bit of time, but, like, it's unlikely you'll die. You can immediately break off again. If you're playing Genji and you've got, like, an Ana with you, you can, like, come over the top of this wall, get nanoed as you come over the top, and, like, get the engage on them, like, relatively quickly. So that's a nice little thing you can do if you're, like, Genji with Ana. But, like, kind of it, really. Like, even getting control of the high ground doesn't really benefit you massively as the attacking team. Like, this is cool and all, but they're right there. This is, like, still not a great angle, and they're going to be shooting at you the whole time. So even if you get control of this, like, it doesn't really pay massive dividends. Obviously, if you can, like, you know, great. High ground is still high ground, right? Even bad high ground is still high ground, so it's still nice if you can, but it's not the sort of thing that's going to be like, bam, I win the checkpoint, right? Like, if you get control of this high ground out here, like, this is an I win the checkpoint situation if you get to command this high ground. But, like, commanding this high ground is just kind of like, you know, I'm in a slightly better position. It's, you know, it's better to have it than to not have it, but, you know, it's not incredible. Can't really do anything fancy here. Pretty much at this point, you know, we've got a really bad spawn as the attackers. The defenders have got a very good spawn. We're just trying to not get too CP'd. We're trying to get a really clean engage on them. And if we get a really clean engage, we do win, right? Like, we don't have to go far. So if we get a really clean engage, we do win. So we have to, like, at this point, we want more big money ultimates on our team. We want to be able to chuck blizzards, gravitons, imps, dragon strikes, nano blades. We want to be able to get these things in here because we're looking for that clean team wipe so we don't get too CP'd right at the end of the checkpoint, which is very easy with a defender spawn that close and an attacker spawn that far away. So, dude, and, like, you know, confined space with not a lot of cover. Good for those big AoE ultimates. So try and get some of those on your team at this point if you didn't already have them, and that's kind of all you got for Dorado 3rd checkpoint. There's really nothing fancy going on here for the defending team or the attacking team. It's one of the most boring checkpoints in the entire game. There's usually a lot of, like, hectic fighting going on in here, but, like, the geometry of the map just favors the defenders so heavily, just because of the spawns, right, if nothing else, that the attacking team has to win very convincingly to actually capture this checkpoint. They can't only sort of win the fight, because if they win and they lost, like, half their team, and they didn't wipe the entire defending team, like, they're gonna reinforce so fast that they won't gain much ground at all most of the time. So as long as the defending team doesn't like run out one by one and get killed. So, you know, the attacking team, you have to get a really clean fight on this checkpoint if you're gonna capture it and you're gonna win. So like you've got to get things on your team that can easily facilitate that. And in Overwatch, that's the big ultimates. That's the Gravitons, the Earth Shadows, the Nano Blades, Death Blossoms, Riptires. You know, they're probably going to be bunkering up on this checkpoint. So those big AoE ultimates are much more effective in that kind of condition as well. Emp as well, you know. But the ults that punish people for being close together and really facilitate team wipes get very important as you get towards the ends of the map as the attacking team. Because we have less options, the spawn always favors the defending team. You need to get a good fight to win the last checkpoint as the attacking team. And unless your Widow's going to pop off and kill 3 people, you're going to need ultimates, dude. So there you go. That's Dorado. So thank you very much for watching if you did. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord and ask questions more directly and have a conversation about them, or just shitpost with us. I started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 8 PM EST till midnight EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future, and I hope you found the video helpful.